that we have in the studio a plethora of expertise. We have the the general manager of the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, Mr. Michael Akindele. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, good morning.
Thank you for coming. We also have here the Fire Prevention Officer of the Lagos State Fire Service, Sanwo Lawrence? Sanwo Lawrence. Then we have some health and safety experts in the studio. Camille Dean Abiodun, thank you for coming. And we have Julius Akpong, thank you for coming.
Pleasure.
All right, gentlemen. Fortunately, we don't have a lady here. Okay, sorry.
There's one here.
You're safe. Zip. All right, Mr. Akindele, let's begin with you. When we talk about safety generally, what are the things that we should be looking at?
Thank you very much. When we say safety, in quotes, it revolves around anything whatsoever that will prevent or avoid any cause of an injury, pain in whatever form, calamities or disaster to an individual, a family, or a community.
Okay. Fire prevention officer. We've had several fires in Lagos. For instance, Mr. Adeleke was at that recent fire in Agidingbi, the mechanic village, yesterday. Yes, you were there.
Yeah.
We spoke with you about it, and you talked about the fact that if it's a mechanic village, it should stay a mechanic village.
Exactly.
Do you think, I'll come back to you, do you think that the multiplicity of things happening there might have helped to incite that fire?
That gives us again the issue when we talk about safety at homes, offices, and the environment. A scenario of the tragic incident that happened yesterday at that mechanic village couldn't have happened. It was a preventable situation if it was designated and maintained holistically as a mechanic village. But what do we have here in Lagos and here and there? You have so many other businesses illegally being operated within a registered environment for a particular assignment. I counted over 15 generating sets there yesterday outside of so many gas cylinders that could have helped or assisted the fire for the time being.
But the gas cylinders, I mean, in mechanic villages, they also handle air conditioning services there. So maybe the gas cylinders are there to help refill gas, air conditioning.
The gas cylinders in question...
Or were they cooking gas cylinders?
The gas cylinders in question that we saw yesterday morning were also in the same shop with the generators. That was why I raised the alarm. Ooh. And from the report we had, that they said the fire started from that axis and moves down
the other shops
directions where it now affected the vehicles. However, it was mentioned that we had about 23 vehicles burnt. But for the urgent intervention of the Lagos State Fire Service, we were able to save 35 numbers of vehicles that could have also been burnt. This must also be mentioned. So this is part of the level of quick response of the emergency team, particularly the fire service, in case of what happened yesterday. Okay. And I must also comment also what happened on Wednesday at 122 and 124 Broad Street, Lagos. It was a terrible scenario. The fire service had all that it takes. Our men and all other responders were there, but the issue of access, there are so many padlocks, so many things. You can't imagine when you're on that street, you would think these are offices. But for God's sake, it was a textile plaza where we have combustible materials, textiles, bags, and shoes. And there were so many illegal structures at the back that did not give us adequate access as emergency managers to ensure adequate to reduce the loss. So, and this brings us back to your question. Safety is key. When there is safety, there will be less in the cost of managing emergencies. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Lawrence, how do we prevent fires? Because these have been like, I mean, the last few weeks, you've had this incident of fire, quite a number
One after the other.
Well, good morning. Your question says, how do we prevent fire? Fires are preventable if we take adequate care. If we actually prepare ourselves, prepare our mind that fire accident can happen, because it's all about accident. And talking about homes and industry or factory, there are certain preliminary things we need to do. First is conducting safety inspection of your environment, of your home, of your industry. And when that is done, then what do I put to prevent this fire? We're now talking about fire protection devices. It could be automatic, it could be the manually operated. Now, looking at the manually operated firefighting equipment, we have the fire extinguishers. We've all seen fire extinguishers all around us. But most of the time, we don't even care about how do I use this equipment. We only see those equipment as part of decorative equipment for our homes. No, they are actually meant to perform a purpose of saving life and property. And it is best said in the fire service that a man at the point of fire incident at the right time and knows what to do, does more than the whole firefighters in the whole world. Sure. That's the saying. So that is why we go out daily to inspect facilities. We go out daily to lecture people. And recently we started this road show of 18, public enlightenment education. We started from Ujoelegba on Monday, educating people. We are moving around the street just to keep them informed about what to do and how to do it right when fire happens.
The health and safety people. Yes, we've talked about fires, and from what we heard when those fires broke out, I think one of them was caused by a candle. Then another one was caused by gas cylinder. There are all kinds of causes, but the ones that are caused by candle lights, what do you advise those who use candlelight to do to prevent getting themselves killed, you know, literally, in fire outbreaks?
Naturally, candlelight are being phased out around the world, and where they are being used at the moment, they are within a confined environment. Where you see it now, you see they have a metal plate or they have a glass over there. And when you use candlelight, it's used within a confined environment where you that actually put it up, you're focused and attentive to that candlelight to be able to manage what will go around. Especially when candlelight goes to the final base of it, that is when the havoc actually sets in the most. And you need to be able to look at the formations around, because already you've introduced a light, an ignition source. And if you have a candlelight in a house and you're also using, you're having a cooking gas going on, and maybe there's leakage somewhere, then you've created an environment where the triangles, we call it a fire triangle, where the triangle comes together and you now have an ignition. You have the heat source, you have the light, and you have the combustible that will encourage it. So oxygen, you can't do anything about oxygen, but you need to be able to control the ignition source which you created. And the combustibles that you put in the environment where you are actually operating. And if we are able to make sure that this triangle doesn't form that shape that we're talking about, we can actually prevent a lot of fire. And I must also point out here that the majority of fire, if you look at the fire incident recently this week, the report from the Lagos State Emergency Agency that came on paper during the week was saying surge, were from surge. The one from the Skybank location were from a surge. The one from the Marina were from surge.
Okay, let's say so this. What we have you talked about the triangle, fuel, the heat, and the oxygen.
That's right.
You have the three together.
And you have fire.
And you can't help it.
You can't help it.
Oh, okay.
Now, Mr. Akpong, he said that candles are being phased out in many parts of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at Nigeria, when do you envisage
that candles will be phased out?
Exactly.
Well, actually,
Well, with NEPA power improving,
yeah,
I mean, it can't be too far-fetched.
yeah. Actually, you can say that to some extent, but I can relate a very quick incident that happened very close to where I stay. People don't just use candles to get lights. People use candles to pray. And when you're praying, it's assumed you're in the spirit. Therefore, you're not around with the candle. So when it starts a fire, you're in the spirit. You're not around.
That's right.
So
not around.
very close to where I stay, someone was in the spirit, and his candle was on a rock carpet. He was in the spirit when the candle was giving off a lot of fumes, and he was getting asphyxiated, and the fire had gotten to a level where he couldn't control. And he had, of course, they don't have fire extinguishers, a lot of these persons. So what he did was manage himself out of the place, and then the building, it was very close to where I stay. So when I came out, the only thing we saw was remains of that building. It's painful to see that. It's painful to see very preventable things become such issues.
Now, staying with you,
Yeah.
a few years ago, we heard that NMPC was going to phase out gas cylinders so that gas will be piped directly into homes like they're done abroad. And then suddenly, the whole thing just disappeared. We didn't even get any explanation as to why the plan was shelved and all that. Do you think that if gas were piped in that way, it spells more safety and, you know, less of fire incidents arising from gas cylinder explosions and all that?
Well, yes and then no. Yes, in the sense that gas cylinders will not be available, so that reduces...
They won't explode.
Yeah, they won't explode. But no, in the sense that if that is done without awareness creation to the people who will be using them, I've had incidences in homes where people just turn on the gas knob and let it be. And then they've not put fire on it and it's on. And then it's only when some other person comes, gas is smelling everywhere, gas is smelling everywhere. And then you now go and then we've also had incidences where people have gas on and they are fleeting. You know, and then it gets to a level where the insecticides,
gas and insecticides.
Yeah.
you know, everything goes off.
Yes.
You know, so for me, from my side,
Insecticides are flammable.
they are very flammable. Yes, they are flammable.
You see a cockroach in the house and your gas cylinder in the kitchen and you're like, bring my spray.
Yeah, and
forgetting
you spray.
the fact that you're actually creating the triangles now coming together.
Yes, you're joining everything.
Formation. The flammable and the heat is on and the oxygen is right there.
Yeah, but if you put your gas cylinders outside, it's safer, isn't it?
It's safer.